Are we?
You bet.
Amazing. So let's start. Max. Commandment number 8. Today, I think we don't do much of an introduction. We have 30 minutes. That's the time we give ourselves to provide value quickly, answer big questions out there that salespeople have that there are no easy answers to. And we were thinking about a big question today that I had a lot in my sales life, the past 8 years, basically. And I think, Max, you too, probably with a lot of customers, had this big question that comes up early or not early, but in the sales cycle at some point. And we are going to talk about trials today. Big question, like, do you do trials for customers? Do you even substitute trials to doing a sales job, basically? How do you do it if you provide trials as an option to your customer? How do you approach that question? That's what we want to cover today. Yeah. Max, anything to add?
Yeah, the question will be, do trials kill your business or do trials make your business? And we found that in our preparatory talk, those 5 minutes there, that it's actually pretty closely related to another question. And that question is, if something goes south, right, with your customer relationship,
Who is responsible?
who is responsible?
Who is responsible?
Yeah, and the basic answer, the typical answer we get to that is, it depends. That is too boring for us, right? We don't accept that answer. We know it's the truth. But from a systematic standpoint, it's also not the truth. Because, for different reasons, we'll talk about that. And so the question is not only, do you do trials or do you not do trials? The question is also, do you guarantee a result for your customer with your service, your software, your product, your consulting, your workshop, whatever it is? Do you guarantee a result or not?
Yeah. And one quick disclaimer here. We are not talking about product-led growth versus sales-led growth today. Product-led growth, perfectly covered. If you wanna grow with product-led growth, read the book Hooked. It's covered there, what you have to do, how you hook the people so that they stay on your service, they buy when they are trying the software. So because product-led growth is basically trying to grow with free trials only. But that's not what we want to cover today. We are covering basically B2B tech sales companies who cannot simply grow with trials because it's much harder to, let's say, configure. I think I can take the extreme example, obviously, but SAP. You cannot give your customers here SAP, try it out, and maybe they continue using it, right? It's just way too complicated how it's built. It needs to be configured per customer. That's an extreme example where a lot of configuration happens, where a lot of consultants come and adjust the system to your needs. A little bit extreme, but there are also examples in between. Our technology that I sell day in, day out, we don't need a lot of configuration, but you can't just give people, the tool and say, hey, log in and realize your benefit within seconds so that you come back and then reuse it. So we cover these kind of topics, software that we cannot just put out for free trials. We're not talking about free trials here, but we're talking about you're in the sales cycle. You had like 3 or 4 meetings with your customer, and they ask you one of the big questions that very often come up. Can we do a trial? Can we do a test period? How do you do that? And that's a big question, and I think that's what we want to give you a good answer today.
Absolutely. And you know that there's this notion that every huge and super successful software company, SaaS company, has become super successful through trials. We've seen it with Dropbox. You've seen it with other organizations. So everybody's so focused on the product and trying to make the product better and even better and better and better, that we forget about the customer. And there's another trend that I see, and that is the trend that founders seem to believe that sales is actually slimy, and sales is, like if you take something from people, and product is when you give to people. And it's very interesting because there is a viable perspective that turns it around. It says like sales is actually helping people make the right decision. Doesn't have to be like, you don't have to pull people over the table to be a successful sales guy. You don't even have to be an extrovert or something. And product, a trial takes attention. It takes time and so forth. So the question is, if you do trials, how do you make them a success? That is the integrated question, because probably nobody is as good as using your product the way it should be used as you are, because you are like the expert, right? It's your product. So, and we're diving in already. Yes. Any questions you have, drop them in the box here below, in the comments box. We are here to answer your questions. If you feel like you need some sparring, talk to us. We are here before it's too late. You can do so live. We'll also post a link under the video where you can have an appointment. You can just book an appointment if you haven't done so yet and you're really serious about growing your business. You're really serious about learning from Patrick. Just click on that link and to book your calendar invitation. And you are here in the SalesMade Smarter Growth podcast. We're coming to you almost every Tuesday, live around sundown. And we're looking into the question, who can take responsibility for results if it's a trial or the full product? And Patrick, you are my favorite example. I know you've done trials in your life. What is your your professional perspective on trials at the moment?
Yeah, so let's start with a few points where you have to think about first before you think about trials in general, right? Because Max, you already gave the answer like implicitly if we should do trials or not. I think it's a big yes, but answer, right? If you do trials or not. And the first thing I thought about, in general, I think trials can be a good thing for one good reason, and which is, what happens if you don't do the trials? Is somebody else getting the business? Is the customer's risk too high so that they're not gonna do the business with you? Are you, basically the big question is, are you losing deals because you don't do trials? I think that's one of the big questions. Another big question that we need to have an answer to. On the first one, it might be hard to have an answer actually, but the second one we have. And the second one is, what does it need for you to have success with your customer in the long run? What do you need the first 3 months? What do you need first 6 months? Maybe the first year to build and start a really successful relationship with a customer? Do you need commitment in terms of FTEs from your customer? Do you need a lot of, well, do you need money, obviously? Do you need other things like a lot of time from your customer? Do you need a project manager? Do you need to have access to a certain stakeholders within the company so that you can roll it out, that you can onboard? Do you need to do a lot of trainings? And other things come to mind maybe that you know about your technology or your business that you sure you need to have in order to successfully roll the technology out. Mm-hmm. That's That's the next big question. And then if it actually, if you give a guarantee to your customer, if that makes the customer work harder to, or actually make the customer do his job and help you have success in the long run with the partnership.
That's a very interesting point. I think it's very interesting. So I hear a lot that when people put all their life energy, all their wisdom, all the power into creating the product. Then they create like a product on top of the product that explains the product. They even create a third product that will ramp up people into the product. It's like a multiplayer online game or something where you pull people through the first 5 levels. And sorry for the corny phrase, in SaaS business, it often seems to me like they try to avoid the conversation with the customer. It's like we're hiding from the customer, right? So the interesting question here is, if you do the trial, can you take responsibility? Is it possible or is it not possible? And if you take responsibility, then how do you do it? And what changes does that bring to your perspective as the vendor, right? So, but before we look into that, basic question: why can the customer not be responsible for his own success?
Yeah. Why not? Good question. Does he know? I think the customer takes some risks, right? We have seen, and probably you have seen a lot, Max, a lot of companies fail with their implementations, their technology implementations. I don't know the numbers, but I guess 1 out of 5 tech initiatives is failing, and maybe even more. I have no idea. But I guess a lot of technology initiatives are failing because the change management doesn't happen. People don't want to have yet another technology. The process isn't built in properly. People from the company leave, and the technology cannot be implemented in the right way, and a lot of other possibilities that the implementation is going to fail. And I think because the people you're talking to have seen that over and over again, they know about the risks. They know about the risk that it takes to buy your software. Not buy your software. That's probably the least issue, the smallest issue. Because when you fail, spending money is one thing, but the problem when you acquire a technology, you want to provide it to your employees, and your employees don't want to have it. That's probably even worse for your reputation and for your career. So I guess that gives a lot of reasons why the customers don't necessarily want to take that risk. There is options how to lower the risk. Obviously, one thing that comes to mind, and maybe you have other ideas, Max, but one thing, if you have happy customers and you enabled your customers to become recommendation machines, let's say, so they let they are open to have discussions with existing, with prospective clients who want to buy but are not sure. You can reduce the risk, the perception of the risks, by providing them contacts and helping them and connecting them with existing customers so they can talk to them and get some information. But one key questions they will ask those contacts is, how did you successfully implement the software in the company? That's going to be one of the key questions they're going to ask.
Yeah,
maybe how you can reduce the risk the perception of the risk for the customer.
Understand? Yeah, understood. And if the customer is doing stuff they're doing most of the software introductions they do that for the first time. it's not like they're doing an IT project for the first time. Also, you might have the impression sometimes. And it's also easy as a vendor to become critical with your customer and think that your customer is incompetent and everything. At the same time, we talked about the experience earlier, right? Nobody's as experienced in implementing Larry as you are, for instance. Nobody's as experienced in rolling out my go-to-market program and sales, marketing combination training and so forth than my team here. So I can give the responsibility to the customer, no problem. I can. They will fail. So if they fail, like, whose problem is it then, right? It's automatically a boomerang. It's returning. The problem is returning to me. So they're doing it for the first time. They need some guidance. I can give them the guidance because I have the experience. I know what I'm doing. I should. So now, if I take responsibility for the result of the trial or for the result of the first year with my product, all of a sudden my perspective changes, right? Let me know how you see this. If I have the perspective that I need my customer to succeed, I may make more smarter, better decisions what to put in the box. I put my software in there. Maybe now I put some examples in there. I put a blueprint in there. I mix it with a framework. I give them a few videos. I give them a Q&A session. I give them a workshop, whatever it is. I may end up with drastically less work, with dramatically less headache, and with successful customers. And then they become recommendation machines. And it's interesting, like most customers, if you ask them why they actually needed the trial, they think it's a risk reduction instrument. It's for them to look if the stuff is legit, if it's real, if you are really a company, if there's really a product, if it's helpful for them. And the big downside is they start the trial, it opens, wrong font size, wrong color, they don't like it. The button's on the wrong side of the screen. All of a sudden the screen is rectangular, whatever. They will find something. And so my perspective is, if you do trials, you need to be responsible as well. So it's trials do not help you surround the question, who's responsible for the success. What do you think about that?
Yeah, fully agree. Fully agree. I have one question that might come up, Max, at this point in time, and that's basically, I'm a successful seller. I never sold trials, and it works. I don't have to sell trials. I can, convince, or my sales process is so good that people don't even, it doesn't come up. And when I say, we are confident it's going to work. We have so many customers, it doesn't matter. What would your answer be to that? Mr. Eilers, to that person who says don't need to sell trials.
Yeah, I think they are right. And like if the customer is looking at a trial as a tool to reduce their risk, there are other tools that reduce the risk, right? So we have it on the screen here. If you listen, if I want to buy a software and the vendor listens to me and they repeat what I say, and I see that they understand where I'm going, and I see that they understand what's required. Doesn't matter. Let's use a different discipline. And they know I want to succeed on Instagram. They ask me really, really good questions. I already understand I want to work with them, right? So, and then maybe there's a reference from another customer. Maybe I've been recommended or something to them, right? Then I actually feel the trust, and the trust will give the whole thing speed. So now the question is, what other instrument is good and helpful for reducing my perceived risk? And that could be something like an exit clause in the contract. That's pretty common for people who don't want to do the trial. Or, I mean, we've been there before. If you want to do the trial because you are convinced that it's a great thing, make it an assisted trial. But don't let people, use your drug on themselves without any knowledge, without any guidance, because they will start drinking your skincare. And that's not helpful. They will think it doesn't work. It actually does. I mean, you have created something so brilliant, so great. Why not make sure? Why not go like the final 2% and make sure that people get it? That's I think that would be my major point. And if somebody tells me that they sell without a trial, I instantly understand that they do a lot of things right. Because if they would not do those things right, they would not succeed.
Yeah, love your answer, Max. Actually, love your answer. I think they are right. Those people who don't sell trials, and I would definitely agree. I think it actually, as a salesperson, it's actually a good measurement for your success in the sales cycle, whether your customer or your prospect is going to ask at the end or at some point in the sales cycle if you do trials. There are different reasons for this, obviously. Yeah, if you have competitors who do trials, you are automatically driven into this, and then it's obviously a fight against your competitors, and you have to make a decision. But something else is, and I realized that with customers, we our industries we are not yet, or new markets we are not yet in. You realize because when they ask, yeah, how many customers do you have in our country and in our industry, and you're like, none, that obviously arises a little exclamation mark, and it's like, okay, they have never done this, so I'm gonna ask for a trial. Obviously, that's one thing, one easy thing. You can't do much as a salesperson about that. Whether the person is going to ask after your answer that you don't have any industrial experience yet. And if you're an early stage startup, obviously you have to do trials because you've never done it. You can't, as a salesperson, it's hard to say, yeah, we have done it several times and I can talk to you about my experience and about our experience, how these customers work. But the longer you work in that, the more you do it, and as a salesperson, the more stories you can tell about existing customers and how you did a rollout, how you implemented, how it works with these customers for the last year. The more you can tell those stories, you have to tell those stories because they gonna decrease the possibility that the customer is gonna ask for a trial. And you can assess your company's performance, your performance as a salesperson by counting how many trials you had to do. Basically, either you go into new markets, okay, then it's assessing the company, but that you have to be prepared when you do this with an idea how you could do trials. Max already gave a good option that I have been using as well. At some point, I just give an option to leave the contract after 3 months, but we do a normal contract from the start to also see a little bit of commitment from the customer. And yeah, so that's one other option. I think there are other options you had in mind, Max, that you can reduce or that you can offer to your customer in terms of trials.
Yeah, and like the interesting part is, and I think we got to be clear here, we actually love trials, right? We love trials done right. So the typical trial is a showcase of features on a roulette table, right? Because it's super accidental. It's absolutely random which button the customer will click, what they will think, what they will feel. If you don't take the ownership for that procedure, it's going to be random. It's going to hurt you. It's seriously going to hurt you. So most trials are not good enough. And there's no point in improving the product because the product is probably good enough, right? So, but you can have the best product. Doesn't mean it's like a Broadway show in terms of quality. But a good trial will have to be very good, or it needs to be an assisted trial. And the point is that if you ask the customer what they are really trying to achieve with that trial or with the product in the next 3 years, there's a good chance that they will not give you a complete answer. I don't know if you've ever been there. So, but if the customer doesn't have a full picture yet of what they try to achieve and where the thing can go wrong, there's a slight chance that they will not be satisfied with your product. And there's a slight chance that they will not be satisfied with your trial. So, and then you're like staring into the darkness and you don't know what's happening and so forth. And that is from our perspective, that is something to consider if you really think about doing trials or continuing to do trials. You got to take the ownership. And when you start taking the ownership, what Patrick just said, if you start taking the ownership and we help customers, fill in those blanks, like what are we trying to achieve? How are we going to achieve it? And then there's another little detail. I have a question on that in a minute. If you take the ownership, then maybe the trial is no longer needed because other things are more important than that. So a question for you, Patrick. I know you've got a ton of experience. A SaaS project, the customer decides to get the SaaS software after a trial, right? 2 years later, they quit the contract. What happened?
Never happened to us though. So must have gone wow, right? So you said you did a trial for 3 months, and then after 2 years, the customer left the contract.
So the customer does a trial, selecting a SaaS software. So after the trial, they decide to buy. 2 years later, they quit. What is the most likely reason?
Based on what did they decide to buy?
The features they've seen, the software they've seen. They like it.
They like it. What else did they assess during that trial? Did they agree on success factors and they achieved those? And
no. Nobody really talked to them about stuff like that.
Never. No, I've no experience with that. Actually, I have to admit, after 2 years, no. Obviously, yeah, it's about adoption, Max. Yeah. Nobody is using it.
Yes.
Nobody's using the tool. I was a bit confused because you say 3-month trial. I mean, you can assess during 3 months. You can assess certain things.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
and that's why I got confused about your question, because you've done a trial. So why wouldn't you assess the adoption and then based on the adoption decide whether you want to continue or not? But maybe those first 3 months went particularly well, and the projection for the next 2 years was good, was looking good. But then at some point the adoption didn't go any more up on, and it failed. And depends what tool you have to onboard. I mean, you can be successful after 3 months. That's not what you want to say, right? Because you can make sure that the adoption is good after 3 months if you have only like
and then if you look at real life organizations and how they select software and IT and like technology investments, how do they decide on technology investments, and how intensely do they like integrate the end user in that procedure and so forth? You will find a lot of like black holes in the process. Like somebody's entering the internet, right? Then they turn left. Then all of a sudden they come up with a short list of SaaS software. They do some trial. Then they think this one is the best. And a lot of times the user is not involved in that procedure at all, right? So somebody buys stuff and then they try to shove it into the organization. And that is also something that most people actually need a little experience and help with and guidance. So how do you, if this is my SaaS software and this is the result I can promise, or I can make you believe in, how do I make sure your people start using it, right? I mean, and that is all over, that is everywhere. Look at a task management app. People buy Asana. Is the CEO using it? People buy intranet apps. What about Yammer? I mean, who didn't try to implement Yammer in their organization to have that internal Facebook? And then what you hear is crickets. Nobody posts, nobody reads, nobody listens. And that is an adoption thing, right? That is it's a change management issue. And the question is, if we assume responsibility for our customers' results with our product and our service and our workshop and so forth, can we give them more guidance tomorrow than we have given them yesterday? And if we can give them more and better guidance tomorrow, I would be really curious to see the result of that. So I seriously doubt it's going to be negative. And just show me one case where that doesn't make you better.
Yeah. Good last point. I think we should quickly summarize the key points when it comes to doing trials.
Yeah, summary. What is the alternative to trials? Is it demos or presentations, Patrick?
Normally it's not. No, and it's recommendation calls is good. Sometimes it works actually. We shouldn't downplay this. It does work. It can work definitely. If you have some experience in the field anyway. I mean, if you know you're about to onboard the next insurance and you already have 2 insurance customers, let these insurance people talk to the other insurance customers that you already successfully rolled it out. But that's in case you have. Let's assume you have no insurance customer. It's likely the person is likely going to ask, can we do a trial? So what do you need to do? There is a few things as a conclusion that you need to do before you agree on this. And the first one was the success factors. Max just gave a good example of these. We had, in my former company, we had 5 success factors that we summarized and that we had actually as part of the sales slide deck. And we said, before we gonna, start, we're gonna make sure that we have those 5 success factors set up, because the customer also asked us all the time, so what do we need to make to be successful? One was we need CEO commitment, what you were talking about before, Max, that really helps to have executive board management commitment so that it works. We need a project manager who is responsible for the project on their side, who has ownership of the project. We need as many people as possible participating in the project. The higher the number, the better. We need those people be distributed in many locations. That was specific to the product I was before, but these were success factors. So we said, and we made the customer, and that's the next point, define those KPIs and make the customer commit in the contract. So define KPIs. You have your success factors. You can derive from those success factors, you can derive KPIs. Let's say we take CEO commitment. We want the executive board to commit. So I have one KPI could be they have to write 1 post per month or per week in that technology, or whatever. If you want to, let's say, if you want to, Teams is a bad example, but you have like SharePoint. Let's use SharePoint. They have to post something into SharePoint at least once a day or once a week. So that could be a KPI that you need. And then the other one with the project manager. So you write into your contract, you have at least one person who is 0.5%, 0. FTEs we commit to the project. 0.5 FTEs that is your contact and talks to you.
Yeah. Quick clarification. Abdu is asking, am I getting this right? Is it rather great onboarding or trial? So is this alternative, or is there a combination of that? What would you say?
Onboarding or trials, definitely a combination. So you have to have a good onboarding for the trials. So to make trials work, if I understand it correctly, I'm not sure up to if I understand you correctly, but it's not either or. It's necessary for trials to work for many. We talked about this at the beginning. It's not about product-led growth. So there you can you need an onboarding there too, a technological onboarding that helps you find the right buttons at the right place. So that's something. You need a great onboarding to make a trial work for sure. And onboarding can be anything in the technology they're using, that it shows where the right buttons are, but you need also a kickoff with the project team. You need to know who's responsible for what and so on. So I think.
So you're saying it's both?
It's both, yeah.
But onboarding is like the constant, right? It's like understanding and getting people to use the stuff right is like if you do trials or if you don't do them, that one remains.
Yeah, exactly.
True.
That one remains for sure. That's correct.
And we had another tip here, and that was clear tasks and timelines.
Yes.
Like when you onboard your customers.
That's actually point number 3 now, from what I said before. So we had the success factors, we had defined KPIs, and
Right.
and make your customer commit to those KPIs in the contract, and we have clear tasks and timeline. So that's the second or third one, however you see it. What do you think? What you can add to this, Max? I think it's pretty clear. Tasks and timeline.
Perfect. I think when you start, I know for it may be a very remote idea for some people to assume that responsibility and say the natural impulse is to say I cannot guarantee that my customer will do anything. And you said something very important earlier. When we say, hey, we guarantee the result, you can always add a big if, right? We can guarantee the result if you do the homework. But you will also increase your customer's likelihood of success because you are more interested in their success, because that is not because your soul changes or your empathy or something. It's because you're more focused on that result. It will get you to think. It will get the whole team to think, what else do we need to do for this customer to succeed?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, not 60% of your customers will succeed, but 83 maybe. What does that do to your business? Your product gets better, your reputation gets better, you get more feedback. You also automatically get a closer tie with your customer. That will actually give you a roadmap for your product, and one that is not out of your wildest dreams, but one that customers actually want to pay for. So what better can happen to your business than this level of understanding for the next steps, right? So that's why we said earlier we love trials if they are done right. And I would say that concludes it.
I have a last good thing that you said the last time, Max. We were talking about this. You were asking me the question, if you would want to buy a house and get a guarantee that it will be worth double the price in 10 years, would you buy the house? I mean, amazing question, right? So who could say no to this, double the price in 10 years? Say no to this. So think about it, what impact it could have to your customer if you give him a great guarantee. Obviously, your team will do all they can to make it work, make it successful at this customer. You're committed to learn stuff. Then looking from that perspective, there is actually no bad things coming up with these with these trials. If you give your guarantee away, but you get commitment from them, I think that's why we love trials, or we love them as well in the sales cycle. Obviously, it's nicer financially and for the company when trials don't need to happen, but they have to, and they will, and that's why you need to be prepared if they are happening and not. Don't know what to answer or what you should do now when it does.
Yes, cool. Abdul, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the question. A pleasure. Great to have you. Really, really great to have you. So we're concluding this. And so we love trials. We love trials done right. You will at some point assume responsibility for your customers' procedures around your product, for your customer success. It will make you a better person, even if you are great. It will still make you a better person. It will improve your product. You will be thankful for it. It's a pretty remote idea. For some organizations, it is a path to get there. If you want us to have a look at your current procedure, your sales process, or if you just want to think through a scenario or something, we are open for sparring. Talk to us. We'll post a link under this video. just grab your 30-minute appointment. We're not charging anything for it. We're looking forward to get to know you better, because that will make us better people, right?
Yes.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. See you around.
Yes.
Watch all 10 episodes of this and grab your SalesMade t-shirt. It's nothing you can buy. It's something you earn. Take care. Patrick.
Take care.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Talk soon.
Again.